Hey everyone, I just wanted to go ahead and get this workshop recorded so that we could put it into the different spaces, whether it goes into Thinkific or if it goes onto Facebook, or I know I'll add it to my YouTube channel. Wanted to have this available so that people could access this information whenever it is most convenient for them, and then from there we'll create some avenues for creating conversation, creating discussion spaces and whatnot around this. This is also basically an introduction to the course that I am working on. The course will expand these components, and hopefully that will be within the next month or two available on Thinkific. For those who don't know, my name is Jay Ray, and I am a pastor within the Christian tradition. I am also a holistic spiritual life coach. And I do want to say that within the for specifically for being a pastor, what does that mean? So I am trained within the Christian tradition. I am on trajectory to become ordained in the United Church of Christ. I do have a Master's of Divinity degree from Vanderbilt University, and I, have lived the life of following Jesus for the majority of my life. I do want to say that while my training and my current chosen main teacher for spiritual practices, living just like how to live in this world is Jesus, my spirituality goes beyond the confines of Christianity. It is expanded into learning and understanding astrology in the way that planetary movements, planetary moments, planetary energies influence and impact us. It's also, I've scratched the very top surface of human design. So that's another thing that I'm wanting to really dive into and learn and understand more deeply. I'm completely open to the idea of, past lives and, reincarnation. I realize that there are so many teachers who have been and who are coming to this planet to help us make sense of what it is to be a human in this particular realm at this particular time. So I personally have crystals. I also am taking a crystal energy guide class. I use them. I use essential oils. I have other divination tools such as tarot cards, oracle cards, angel cards, which I utilize regularly for myself. I practice meditations, I practice breath work. I do all of these additional things so that are outside the traditional kind of understanding of what Christianity is. And I say all of that to just to let everyone know that I'm certainly not within that monolithic definition of what a Christian pastor looks like. I go far beyond that, and I consider myself a student of spirituality. So I don't foresee, necessarily ever just arriving right at this end goal of, understanding or whatever. I literally want to always be learning and expanding and growing. So I just want to put that out there. You can see in this, I'm working on credentials with International Coaching Federation. I have a Master's of Science in Education degree with University of Kansas in Curriculum and Instruction. And what else have I added on to this? Psychic Intuitive, finding my way through the wonderful tools of divination, astrology, and the like. Yep, 100%. Honored to be here, for sure, always. Right relationship is a concept that came to me through my courses and training within Divinity School. I have to give props to Trudy Hawkins Stringer, who was my field ed um, uh, director, instructor, professor, guide, mentor, all knowing guru um, being. She's an amazing, incredible, wonderful human being, and I hope that this course does high honor to her. She was the one who introduced me to this consideration. Um, within right relationship, what are we talking about with right relationship? We are talking about being in relationship with ourself and others. Others, including the divine, universe, source, creator, infinite, love, whatever name that you have, higher power, whatever name that you use, God. Um, right relationship means being in relationship with self and others in a way that invites, encourages, sustains mutuality, respect, reciprocity, this ebb and flow. You get to be wholly who you are. I get to be wholly who I am. You are responsible and accountable for your words, thoughts, actions, deeds, engagement within the relationship, as I am responsible for my words, thoughts, deeds, engagement, actions, right? And I break this down into kind of four basic components in order to be in right relationship with others, including right relationship with ourself and even right relationship with spirit, divine, source, creator. I'm going to call it spirit, okay, just to simplify this going forward. I'm going to say spirit. In order to be in right relationship, we have these four components that have to happen. I have to be able to be self-aware. This is where I'm understanding and knowing myself. I also have to be able to position myself to understanding you or whomever it is that I'm in relationship with. We will have conversations about mutuality, about reciprocity, about what respect means, right? And that's kind of the building of this contract, the building of what's going to govern our interactions. And then there's the agreement. And the agreement from the conversation, what's going to govern our actions, what do you need, what do I need? We get to this agreement where we're actually discussing those boundaries, right? And the expectations that we have with one another, toward one another. And we'll get into each of these a little bit more in this workshop as I record this and put it out there for everyone. In the course, we will dive into each of these components in an even deeper way. Okay? If we were meeting live currently, we would set up group agreements. These group agreements are structured in a way that allows every person in the room, one, to have a seat at the table, two, to acknowledge and recognize that each person sitting in a chair has a voice, has a perspective, has something of value to add to the conversation. And three, that everyone in chairs with those voices, that value to add belongs. Everybody in this room belongs. What I want to be able to do with this ultimately, after we have this recording available, what I want to be able to do is set up some scheduled discussion moments, right? So that we can, you've watched this workshop, you're possibly interested in the course. Let's meet. We'll set a designated time. Let's meet and let's discuss this a little bit more, and just kind of, get an understanding of what your questions are, where something's resonating with you, where something maybe is challenging you a little bit more, so that as I continue to tweak and design the course, we're addressing those things and they'll be incorporated in that, right? Since we are not currently having an actual live discussion, obviously this is a recording, then we won't belabor this, but just know that anytime we have conversation with me, being kind of the lead of that conversation, a facilitator of that discussion, we will have these group agreements in place. Within the body of the course, if there's any place for actual commentary, discussion, or anything like that, these group agreements will apply. So, with that said, let me just real quick. Let me go ahead and read these. If there anyone's using like a reader low vision situation or whatever. So basically, there are three group agreements on this slide. The first group agreement is creating a brave space, and what that means is we hold what others say with confidence. So we practice confidentiality. We listen to what others are saying with curiosity, and we respect other people's voices. We understand, we know, this is not written on the slide, but we understand, we know, we embrace, we encourage, we honor the fact that every single person in the room has a very valid perspective. They have experiences that have shaped their perspective. Those perspectives shape the worldview, and someone highly likely and will see the world, see experiences, see opportunities, see obstacles, right, differently than what we see. And that's all rooted in our experiences creating those perspectives. So we want to honor that within everyone. The second agreement in the group agreements is learning new things. We want to position ourselves to be able to experience the discomfort that sometimes occurs when somebody sees things differently than what we do. We want to expect and accept non closure. So if we become uncomfortable with something that somebody says, we don't have the expectation in this setting for that to be sewed up, right? We don't have the expectation in this setting that we're going to get full closure on that. This may be something that makes us uncomfortable enough that as we move away from, the workshop or if we are in a discussion, as we move away from that discussion, then that may be something that we take away. That may be some discomfort that we have. And from that, hopefully, that spurs our curiosity to go out and do our own further research, right? To deepen our understanding of what this is that made us feel uncomfortable. Anytime we feel uncomfortable, that is an invitation to go deeper. It is an invitation to engage further. So that's why within the second group agreement of learning new things, we want to say stay engaged. Being engaged doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing the talking. Often it means that you're doing the listening. Often it means that you're not closing off, you're not saying, well, this doesn't make any sense, and you're not just shutting down, right? Staying engaged means you're asking curious questions, but very respectful. We're not trying to shut down conversation. That's not the purpose of the work that I want to do with Right Relationship or the work that I want to do in anything that I do. It's not for mic drops. It's not for shutting down conversations. It's not for stopping, the flow. It is for leaning into the things that make us feel uncomfortable. And sometimes that means just listening for now. The third and final point that we have in group agreements for this setting is to allow growth to occur, right? So we're going to examine our own assumptions. So if somebody presents something or somebody comes in and brings something into the conversation and we're just like, oh my gosh, no, I completely disagree with that. We need to examine our own selves, right? We need to examine, okay, why do I disagree with that? What is this saying to me in this moment? What am I hearing? Right? And then allow myself to keep listening potentially. We want to consider new information as it comes in. We want to allow ourselves to have new information, be able to land and be able to stretch us and help us to grow. We also want to, through this process, what we will do is find our growing edge, right? The growing edge is a concept that was handed to me from mystic Christian Howard Thurman. He lived, I think he was born in the early 1900s, possibly the late 1800s, and lived, I think, until about the 60s, 70s timeframe. I said I would look this up, and I haven't looked it up. I think that's right. I strongly encourage reading anything written by Howard Thurman. I think it will. I think it could be eye-opening for anyone. It helps expand your spirituality. It helps move you beyond any kind of boundaries or borders that may have been set. On this next slide, I have the question, what is right relationship? And I have written kind of my own definition from my own studies, my own creation. This is a culmination of things that we learned in our fielded, class during divinity school, and then also just my life experience of discussing this topic since that time frame. So, right relationship is a relationship through which all parties are allowed, encouraged, and expected to be and become their most authentic self. On this next slide, I continue with a definition saying, in right relationship, we are allowed, encouraged, and expected to grow. We are treated with compassion and respect, and we reciprocate these things toward others. The four basic components are self-awareness, understanding each other, the contract, and the agreement. The self-awareness, this is where we begin knowing ourselves. Understanding our next step is understanding others. Number 3, the contract, keeping things mutual, reciprocal, and respectful. Number 4, the agreement, discussing boundaries and expectations all parties agree with. Self-awareness. Creating right relationship with others begins with knowing ourselves well. We need to understand our needs, wants, and desires, as well as our no-goes and deal breakers in order to formulate our boundaries and expectations. I think there's a level that we all have about self-awareness. However, I have found in conversation with many, we may be aware of something that we don't like. We may be aware of something that we don't agree with. We may be aware of something that, perhaps we'll say, well, I do agree with those thoughts, that thinking, that perspective, that worldview, that position, right, amongst a group of people. And so those are my people, and I'm going to go be with those people. But when we get further in drilling down, like if somebody were to ask us a question like the why behind the what. So, for example, I believe that all kids in school should be fed breakfast and lunch. We've created a society that often has parents going to work maybe before breakfast can be had. We have, a variety of situations where, maybe families are struggling financially, whatever. And I personally believe that all kids, regardless of social economic status of their parents, should be fed in the morning when they arrive at school, and lunch, and if they're in any kind of after school program or whatever, also a snack there. The reason I believe this is because I know that studies have shown that kids who are fed, who are not sitting in a classroom hungry, they are able to pay attention. Their attention span is bigger and longer. They can focus easier. Those kinds of things. So I'm self-aware of a position that I hold, right? And I can tell you why I hold the position. Some people cannot do that aspect, right? They can't tell you why they believe what they believe. And if you keep pushing and keep asking, well, why on me with regard to this, you will discover that it's because I was a recipient of the free lunch program as a kid. And I know firsthand, I have personal experience where that helped me in my educational process. What I think that we don't always know well, though, in our society, we've not been encouraged to know ourselves from a perspective of, do I know? Do I pay attention when I'm hungry? Do I know? Do I pay attention to my body when I need water? Do I know? Do I pay attention? Have I constructed a schedule for myself that helps me be the most fluid I can be with my energy? Do I know that on Monday I really need that to be a day of kind of preparation and planning and setting up my week? That Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my days to be productive, to actually do things. On Friday, I'm reviewing the week, wrapping up, and maybe putting out some schedule for the following week or whatever. Like, do I know my needs? Do I know that I need to go to bed at 8 o'clock every night because I need an hour and a half wind down process so that I can clear my mind, that I can do some meditations, that I can feed my mind some affirmations, that I can say some affirmations, I can, pray or speak to spirit, or whatever, feel connected to source, feel connected to my body. I have a self-care routine at night that I need space and time to practice, right? I need to get up at 6 every morning because what I need to do is meditate. I need to get grounded, get centered. I need to pull an oracle card. I need to reflect on what that means and set the tone for my day before I go into my day. We don't always know those things about ourselves. So how can we discover that? Well, I've found that in addition to these, there are many other ways that we can have rituals or have practices or whatever that help us answer those questions. What are my actual needs? What do I actually need? Journaling is one, meditation, going to therapy, and of course, I will also recommend having a life coach, just having somebody that you can talk to, whether it be through your journal or in a meditation, connecting to spirit, whether that meditation be guided, be musical, be chanting affirmations, whatever it may be. Breath work would also be something that could be on here. Just various different healing modalities, pulling oracle cards, pulling tarot cards, pulling angel cards, something like that, using my crystals, that are helping me ground and center so that I can get that access into my mind, so that I can know what is it that I need. When we're starting a relationship or continuing a relationship with somebody, and we want that relationship to be healthier, it is really important that we position ourselves to understand, right? In order to build a right relationship, we also have to be able to understand others. We devote ourselves to compassionate curiosity and listen to them share their experiences, perspectives, and dreams for the future. And I have on this slide a hot take. Sometimes listening to others helps us understand ourselves better too. I can share with you that even on my own personal journey, my personal journey of understanding myself, understanding my sexuality, my gender identity, various things throughout my life, even becoming a life coach, I reached a lot of those points on my journey to step onto a particular path because I was listening to others as well. I was listening to others share about their experiences, and I was finding those places that resonated for me, and then I was able to move forward in my own life. When we're in relationship with one another, we want to be able to listen to others. We want to be able to hear and understand how they're seeing the world, how their mind is working, how they're processing information, and the conclusions that they're drawing, because understanding those things helps us then figure out how we connect to that other person. I mean, we're connected to everybody. Some people we're connected to, we don't necessarily resonate with them. And it may be a scenario that we are having a conversation with somebody, they're sharing their experiences, they're sharing their perspectives, and we are like, no, vibrationally we are not on the same wavelength there. We're not you're proposing a completely different world, and that is not a worldview that I share, that I hold. And so even though we may still be connected, as being human beings on this planet together, we are not going to be in relationship, right? Like I am not able to have relationship with you because even though we do understand one another, like our trajectories are so far apart that we just like we'll just agree to not share space, right? And so sometimes it happens, and this process of trying to establish right relationships sometimes means the right relationship means that there's a boundary, and that boundary means that we don't share space. For those relationships where we are energetically aligned, where we are moving forward, and when I say energetically aligned, I don't mean necessarily 100% on the same frequency, because I have plenty of people in my life who aren't doing the same things that I'm doing, practicing, different spirituality in a variety of ways. They're not necessarily doing that thing, and that doesn't mean that I place myself above them. They're not a hierarchy in that way. It just means that when we are interacting, the key for me is that we are mutually respectful to one another, that we are exchanging and sharing our ideas and our stories and our experiences in a way that honors one another. And if we ever come to a place where I can't honor myself and also honor you, well, then I know that there's a break there, right? So, what are the ways that we can understand one another? We want to extend our compassion. We want to have curiosity, and I mean respectful curiosity. I don't mean like I'm going to say quote unquote nosy rosy kind of thing, right? Where I just want the juicy goods, I just want the gossip, I just want the good bits, right? I'm not talking about gossip. I'm talking about I really deeply want to understand you, so I'm curious about why you think that way, or why you feel that way, or what has happened to kind of shape that, right? So deep listening is something that I'm going to practice when I'm wanting to understand another person, and always utilizing my empathy, always understanding that, especially when somebody's speaking of an experience that I haven't had that maybe has shaped them, and they have some wounds from that, wounds or trauma or something like that. I want to be able to express and understand that, even though I maybe haven't had that experience, I could, right? Maybe I haven't had an exact experience. Maybe I've had a similar experience, right? So just trying to put myself in that person's shoes, kind of trying to imagine feeling what they're feeling, listening to why they feel what they feel, why they see it the way that they see it, and just trying to put myself in that person's experience. Just always keeping that person human, right? As we're interacting with others and wanting to create right relationship, we're creating a contract through these conversations. And when we're creating the contract with others, it doesn't mean that we're putting something down on paper that we expect one another to sign in a Sheldon Cooper style, right? Has anybody seen Big Bang? Hopefully you have. Hopefully you get that reference. Sheldon Cooper has contracts for everything, roommate agreements, and various things. It means you're at a minimum having a conversation with others, developing the way you want the relationship to flow. Everyone gets to share, everyone needs to listen. This is where we are fluid with mutuality, reciprocity, and respect. So, no, also, I probably should have said this earlier, but these kind of four basic components of right relationship, being self aware and understanding others, and then creating this contract and then creating an agreement, these can be very fluid states, right? This can be an ebb and a flow as we get to know one another, as we grow forward, and as we ourselves get to know ourselves and grow and become who it is that we've been created to be on this planet at this time, right? So this is a fluid kind of experience with right relationship. It's not a one and done, but we do get to, and we should be having the conversations as things come up and where we feel uncomfortable. We should self-reflect. Okay, what made me feel uncomfortable with that? Why was I just activated? Is that a part of this relationship? Is it a part of this? Is it a pattern in this relationship that needs to be addressed, or is this an activation on a pattern from, previous relationships outside of this one that I need to address? I need to work on. I need to work on my healing. I need to work on my releasing, right? Healing is also about releasing. That's something that has only come into my, even my understanding and realm within the last few years. Healing is not only about feeling, acknowledging on a conscious level of whatever the experience was. It is also about releasing the the grip of the narrative, of the story, of the experience of the moment, so that it no longer dictates and directs how we move forward. All of this is fluid. When we're in this creating a contract phase, we're talking about mutuality. You get to be fully you, I get to be fully me. You get to use your voice and explain, express your experiences, your perspective, your dreams, desires, wishes for the relationship. I get to do the same. Reciprocity, right? That's reciprocity. Mutuality and reciprocity are pretty close together in what we mean in this regard. That we're respecting one another, and that respect needs to be defined. I come from a family system that is highly dysfunctional. There's a lot of toxic behavior within that family system, a lot of wounds. Our matriarch came to, become a mom from a very wounded position. She had a lot of wounds when she was first got married and when she had kids, and those wounds just carried over, and additional wounds came with things, and she acted out of those wounds a lot. So my grandmother then, from her wounds, wounded all of us in a variety of ways. Some of us that stayed with us a lot longer than others. Some were able to find their way out and seek their healing sooner. Others are probably repeating. I've lost contact with some of the family members, and some of them have, just repeated their own cycle of woundedness and living out of those wounds. So for me, there are certain things that I would ask you to never say to me, even if you were joking, because it's going to activate a wound in me. And while yes, it's my responsibility to work on that wound and heal that wound, it's also okay for me to have a boundary to say that if these kinds of things aren't respectful to me, and then you get to decide. This is kind of going into an agreement to the commitment a little bit, but you get to decide. Is that something I can uphold or is it not? And I've discovered that when I actually want to honor someone, and I also want to honor myself, if they are actively working on their own healing of something, and they say, look, I don't find that funny. I am going to ask you not to say that, if that, or if that's not a boundary. That's not a boundary. That's how Gen X learned about boundaries. Gen X learned boundaries are, I tell you not to say this. Boundaries really are, if you say this, I will do that, right? That's actually a boundary. So in this regard, so there are certain ways that people can speak and joke with one another. I'm not going to joke that way because I can't, because it's too activating to a trauma situation for me, and I don't consider it respectful. You guys can do what you need to do, but that won't work for me. And so my boundary would be, please don't ever jokingly, if you jokingly call me this name or whatever, I will let you know that I don't like that. If you continue to do that, then we will not have conversation. We will not be in a relationship, right? That's a boundary. Not that you have to stop your behavior, which is what Gen Xers were taught. but that you get to do what you feel. I get to tell you if I like that or if I don't like that. And I get to tell you that if you continue doing it, this is what I will do. I have discovered when people set a boundary, especially on people that I do want to be in right relationship with, I have no problem respecting that boundary. I have no problem modifying the way that I'm speaking to them for it to be mutually respectful back and forth, right? It's not, I don't consider it me twisting myself inside out and jumping up and down and jumping through hoops for them. I consider it me being a compassionate, empathetic person to say that I don't want to cause this person further harm. And they've already let me know that this is a wound that I have and it's not quite healed. And anytime someone does these things, then it hurts me. And I literally don't want to hurt other people. I don't want to do that. So I don't have an issue modifying myself for that. Agreeing to a commitment, this is, I say the last phase. It's the last phase component that we're discussing in this workshop. But again, this is something that's fluid throughout the duration of the relationship. At any point, you can come up to someone and say, "Look, I have been working on my healing, and I've discovered that while this thing has been acceptable to me and I've gone along with it, I've realized that I actually don't like it. And I actually am not gonna, okay, personal example. I have a proximal relationship. So it's a person that I'm in relationship with simply because um, it's a situation that I don't feel I can actually completely avoid this relationship. And this person is a very unregulated person and very dysregulated and has emotional outbursts regularly and had one not long ago, and I gave it several days, and then I reached out to the person and I said, I kind of explained the context of why I was sending the communication that I was sending, why I was sending it versus having a conversation, and let it be known that the outburst, while you are free to have as many as you need, when it happens, because it makes me uncomfortable and because I'm no longer allowing you to target me as an outlet for this, I'm going to leave the room. So the more you do it, the more I disappear. And that was a boundary that I set. That happened even though I had been in this proximal relationship with this person for a number of years. It took several years for me to anchor into honoring myself in order to then express to this person, there's a history here of this happening. And I'm finally at a place where I can no longer be present. When you're doing these things, I can no longer be present. And, it's been helpful. It's been helpful to me. A boundary is where I can honor and love myself as much as I honor and love you. I think that's a good, crisp, tight way to say it. I've already, talked about how a lot of Gen Xers and, other generations, boomers, silent generation, we learned about boundaries in a different way. I think the younger generations are learning about them in a healthier way. And this is a healthy way. When you do this, it makes me feel this. If you keep doing this, I'll start doing this, right? That's the boundary. Likewise, we want to talk about expectations also, right? So Unspoken expectations. This was on the previous slide. I'm going to go back to the previous slide. Unspoken, it's hot take number 2 at the bottom of the page. Unspoken expectations are relationship enders. Don't require others to read your mind or guess what you need. Likewise, don't try to read another's mind or guess their needs. That's not our job. Our job is not here to be mind readers. Our job is not, even if we are psychic intuitives, even if we have all of our clairs activated, and even if we have expressed to the people that we're in relationship with that we have these abilities, it is not our job to read the mind, to read the intentions, to know those things in other people. It is our job to ask for clarification if we find ourselves confused. And at that point, it becomes the other person's job to explain and articulate, right? Likewise, it is not someone else's job to utilize all of their psychic abilities, to read our minds, our intentions, our expectations. And if they feel confused, they get to ask. And then we need to be able to articulate, express, explain, right? This has been a game changer for me in my relationships. This is a really important bit of, being in right relationship. Because of the dysfunctional family system that I come from, what I was trained to do was anticipate other people's needs. That was the training that I received to survive in the narcissistic environment. And so it was to become wickedly codependent, which I have excelled at codependency for a number of years. And I'm actively in recovery and have now been for also a number of years. Being able to say what I need is still a challenge. Listening to someone ask me what I expect is still a challenge. And asking somebody else to define their expectations is still a challenge. But it's been a game changer because it opens the dialogue and it helps me to know. It helps me be able to communicate, this is the intention that I understood, and then recognize, is this really the intention of this moment of this relationship, or is this something from the past? And it's helped me to really see how often I am overlaying my experiences from past relationships into current relationships, whether that be the romantic relationship or it be just friendships or it be, working relationships, right? It's also helped me to be brave and be able to stand up for myself and be able to say, this is what I need right now. And this is an expectation that I have upon you. Now, at that point, when I've expressed an expectation, the other person gets to say, yes, I see that and I can do that. Or I see that, but I can't do it. Because sometimes, let's be real, sometimes the expectation that we have on other people is unrealistic. Sometimes the expectation that we have on ourselves is unrealistic. And we have to be ready to face that. We have to be ready to acknowledge that. We have to be ready to respond to that, because it may mean that we've got to go back and do some more healing because we're expecting something for somebody that, nobody can meet that, right? Nobody can do that for us. And sometimes, I've also found in my healing that sometimes I've expected other people to do things for me or thought that I needed them to do something for me, so still an expectation, whether I want you to do it or I need you to do it. It's an expectation. And they've said no. And so I've had to go back into reflection on the expectation and realize, well, no, of course that expectation wasn't for them. It's actually for me. I've had and put this expectation on them. I've wanted them or needed them to do, XYZ. So I thought. But in deeper reflection, in my self-awareness, so see how this goes right back to self-awareness, right? I'm in a conversation with somebody, I get to a place where we're talking boundaries and expectations, I express an expectation, I have to go into reflection because I heard, right? I understood, I listened to the other person and they said no. And then I have to go back into self-reflection. And I have to realize, and I have realized, that 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 expectation really wasn't something that they could do. Only I can do that. I'm the only one who can do it. And so that expectation is actually for me. And is the expectation realistic? And sometimes no. I have unrealistic expectations for myself, right? So these are the let's see here. Let's go to agreement to commit. So agreement to commit is having healthy boundaries, healthy expectations, honoring ourselves, and honoring others. Um, so we're at the end of the presentation at this point in a live event. We would then have discussion. Discussions would never be recorded. I don't record the discussions portion. I want the discussion to be a sacred space, much like a sharing circle where everyone is in the space together. Everyone agrees to the confidentiality. We go back to the group agreements that we discussed, right? Everybody is respected for their position, their experience, their understanding. Questions are heard. We have the actual discussion. So this would be the place where we would have the discussion. So at this point, what I want to do is say that I am going to load this where you can access it. You've already found that because if you've made it to this spot, you're there. And then what I want to do is, if you've watched this, I want you to drop into the comments if you would be interested in an actual discussion over this material. If you would be interested in a discussion over this material, just let me know. Yes to discussion. I'd love to discuss. Let me know timing. What works for you? Are you a person who can only have discussion in the evenings? Are you a person who can only have discussion on your lunch hour? Are you a person who could only attend discussions on a Saturday? The weather's getting nice. We're into spring now. I know Saturday's not always going to be a good time for folks. Maybe if somebody wants a Saturday, it's going to need to be an early morning. If Sunday is your day, drop that in. I need to know kind of where the group is at as far as having discussion. If this is a situation where you're like, yes, I can do a discussion, but I really need this to just be like within the Facebook community, right? So we're just going to discuss in the comments. Let me know that as well. We are trying to figure out what it is that you guys need so that we can bring that to you in a way where we can all engage and we can all learn and grow with and from one another. And, I'm adding specifically this component to that, right? Relationship is really high on my list of things, that I like to discuss. If you're interested in chatting with me one-on-one to kind of, grow forward, develop further, do whatever, I will have my email address. It's actually, I think it's on this page. These are ways that you can find me. You can reach out to me in any of these particular ways. Direct message me. I don't think, do I have my email? I don't have my email on here. My email address is Pastor J Ray, PastorJrae at gmail.com. And I will put that in the post with this presentation. And with that, I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for attending this virtual workshop, this recorded workshop. I appreciate it, and I would love to have your feedback, have contact from you. I would love to know your thoughts. If you're interested in a course, I would love to know that as well. Thanks so much.